Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of The World Can Wait. We're excited to be here and kick off our final conversation during Military Week. These conversations, if you've been keeping up with them, have been very, very good. Yesterday was super insightful. Just being able to hear experiences from different walks of life and different people as to how the military was for them, the highs, the lows, the good, the bad, everything in between. So we wanted to close out the week with tonight talking about the experience being in the military and being black and what all comes with that, what you have to deal with, what you may not have to deal with. Again, like I said yesterday, we don't get to hear these perspectives a lot. We kind of get told, this is what the military is like, and we get all the good, and that's not to say that there's not good. As we've heard during this week, there's absolutely a lot of good, but we want to explore everything. So we've got a panel here tonight of more veterans, black veterans who have served, who have done time in the military, and we're just going to be able to listen to their stories and experiences that they've had. So we appreciate you all coming and being here. I'm going to kick things over to Charles. He's going to pray, and we're going to get started.
God, I just thank you for this opportunity for us to gather here and share experiences and perspectives on what it's like in our shoes. I just pray that where people might find opportunity to be offended, that they would just really let the words that are being spoken really resonate with them and find out what it is about this individual that led them to feel that way rather than make a judgment about people. I pray that this conversation would shed light on a lot of things in this world and that people would just learn and grow from it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, so we've been doing this same little icebreaker every day this week just to kind of kick things off. So what we want to hear from you guys first is what branch you served in and how old you were when you got in. AG, why don't we kick it off with you?
All right. So I actually joined the Navy. I think I was about 21 years old when I went in. I was 21 years old. And I needed a change.
Okay. Ms. Rashonda, how about you?
I joined the Air Force. AG, they was accepting us back then. That was 1987. So I joined the Air Force at age of 17. And did you ask us why we joined?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, we getting there.
All right.
Yeah, he jumped the gun a little bit. It'd be all right.
Okay.
What about you, Mr. Lucius?
I joined the Navy back in 1992. I was 22 years old.
Okay. Got you. So now we're going to jump ahead and get into that. Why exactly did you join? AG, you said you needed to change. You want to expound on that a little bit?
All right. So it was 2009 when I actually swore in, did everything I had to do to get into the Navy. And what it was, I was back in Atlanta. I was running the streets. I was young, but I had my first child that was actually on the way. And I was turning 21. It was the day before my 21st birthday. I actually got robbed at gunpoint. And didn't get to enjoy my night out. I ended up calling my cousin who had been taking me to the recruiting station with him. I've been just watching him. I was talking, cracking jokes and stuff. I had my dreadheads. I had gold teeth in my mouth. I was just one of those back in the day. I wasn't worried about no military. But after that night, I knew I had like a kid that I hadn't even seen yet about to be born. I was like, I gotta get out of Atlanta. I gotta be here. So that was it. I got that meal ticket and I ain't looked back, bro. Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Sandra, why did you join up?
To get the heck out of South Central LA. No, really, I wanted to be a doctor, and I was going to go to college first. But we had spent 3 years in Germany because my dad was Air Force too. We came back to LA after that assignment was up. 3 days after being in LA, there was literally a shootout right in front of our house. The car stopped in front of the house. Guy got out with a gun, chased two guys through our backyard. I said, and I think I might survive better joining the military now at 17, going to college and med school on their dime, but I got to get out of LA. That's why I joined.
Man. Lucius, how about you?
So I'm gonna answer this question in twofold. First, I come from a family with a strong military background. My father was in the Air Force. My brother was in the Army. My uncle was in the Marine Corps, Dex's father. So I always knew I was going to join the military. But being Northern Virginia back in the early '90s, the Clinton years, you know what it was. It was heavy drugs. You either went to college, went to prison. Most of my friends ended up, hustling, going to prison. So the only out I saw for myself was the military. So that's one of the reasons, big reasons why I joined, but not the only reason why I joined.
Just to interject, I will say that he brought up a real good point. I did have that background with that route too. My dad, he was in the Navy. My uncles, like his brothers, they were in the Navy. You go to my grandma's house, she has on my mother's side, this is on my mother's side, she has a whole little family tree of everybody who joined the military lined up, all the pictures of everybody. I never took a picture when I was in the military. I was one of those. So she always gets mad at me, like, yeah, your picture's supposed to be up there too. I'm like, it's all good, grandma.
That's cool, man. I feel like throughout the course of this week in the military conversations we've been having, I think there's maybe only one person who didn't have a history of, family members serving in the military. And I wonder how much that plays a part in us doing it, whether we actively say, my family did this, so I'm going to do it, or if it's just like a thing that we know we can do because our family did it,
It's an option. It's a viable
Yeah.
option.
And it is a viable option too. One of the things that came up yesterday, I want to say, was how like for so long it's been like, all right, you finish high school, you go into college, or you go into the military. And other than that, you're like homeless, you're a bum, you're just flailing through life, and it's kind of interesting. But as Dom said, we're talking about what it's like being black in the military, which means racism. I know that so many people are tired of hearing about racism, and that's cool. We will keep talking about it. So the question is, because and I guess it might be a little presumptive, because one of the things I like to tell people is how long I lived my life unaware of how much I was impacted by and had experienced racism. There have been different things that have happened in my life that I look back on now and say, oh man, that was like extra racist. Whereas at the time it was just like, this is just the world that we're in, And so the question that I'm asking is, did you think that by joining the military that you could escape racism? Granted, none of you said like, I joined it because I wanted to get away from white people trying to kill me or anything like that. But assuming that as black people, you had experienced racism prior to, did you imagine that the military would be a place where you would experience racism? And can we kick it off with you, Lucius?
Oh, me. Oh. Oh. I don't know. I mean, now when we talk about racism as far as the line as people being prejudiced to you because you're different, because of your skin tone, because your background or whatever. I mean, I didn't think I knew the military was going to be that. Anything you do in society, you're always going to have that. But as far as systemic racism, where they deny you the ability to achieve or to get to that next plateau in the military, I didn't think that I was going to experience as much as I did when I initially decided to join. I always knew that people are going to dislike you. I mean, they disliked Jesus when he came to the earth, so they're going to dislike you for whatever reason they want to dislike you for. But to actually stop you from achieving what you're supposed to achieve in the military, yeah, I didn't think it was that much effort put into it. But I found out later in my career that there was. So to your answer, I was kind of naive to think that the military was going to be wide open for everybody as far as opportunity wise.
What about you, Miss Prashanda?
I did not think that I was going to escape racism. And the reason why, I can't necessarily, and I might be jumping a little bit ahead, can't remember too many incidents or think of any where I faced racism while I was active duty. Mine all came as a dependent, but dependents knowing what these children's parents were like. I mean, I could tell you stories of how many girls who were going to be disowned because they were dating black guys in the high school on base. One girl in particular who was taken to Holland to have an abortion because she was pregnant by a black guy. Another incident where I was spending the night at a good friend's house, only for her to tell me while I was there. Now, all these men are in the military. I'm a dependent at this point, though. But for her to tell me that night, well, you know, my dad doesn't really like black people. I'm spending the night. And I'm like, wait, what? And then she goes to explain, well, he likes black women and girls, but he doesn't like black men. So it's okay for you to spend the night here because you're not a black guy. That being said, those were my high school experiences, the 3 years I was in Germany. So I knew what I was dealing with as far as active duty white men, that they existed and they were very serious. But these are the same men, the one guy who took his daughter to Holland, he worked for my dad. So with that being said, this is somebody that my dad worked with all the time, but not necessarily anybody you would have pegged as a racist because that wasn't always something that they wore, you know, just out and about on the job. But then when you get down to the kid level, kids talk. We knew what some of these men and some of these women in the military were really like. So no, I definitely knew that I was not going to escape racism when I joined.
You up next, AG?
And kind of like just to piggyback off of what she mentioned the high school. I grew up in Atlanta, and so if you really know, it's a black city. A lot of our teachers and stuff are black. So besides, like as far as direct racism, I never really experienced that until I actually went to college. In Atlanta, it was more systematic. You know, just the overall, every day in your face, you walk outside and you see it. You know, type of racism. But when I went to the military, when I went to college, I went to Truman State University in Kirksville, Missouri, where they knew I played on the football team because I was black. Right, and that just hands down. They saw me in the city. They knew I was on the football team for the college because I was black. And so I don't have to go too much further with that experience of being in Kirksville, Missouri, from Atlanta, Georgia. And then when I joined the military, you do go there expecting you know, kind of what you see on the TV and the movies, you know, that brotherly love, like, hey, my life on the line, my life in your hands is like your life in my hands. So you expect for all the extra stuff to go out the window, but end up in a situation where I had my XO of the USS Baton tell me in the middle of XOI when he asked me why did I join the Navy, and I told him the same reason why I told y'all. You know, I had a child on the way, I wanted to change, and he told me in front of everybody, the military didn't have time for welfare situations. Like he was referring to me being there for my kid and trying to change my situation as a welfare case. And because I didn't give him the answer, I'm here to die for my country. You know, I gave him my legitimate reason. It took a white chief, a FC chief, God rest his soul, he ended up committing suicide on the ship. But like he ended up stepping up and pretty much saving my career. Just like, no, I'm not gonna let this happen. Like, he spoke up for me right then and there. And then the rest of the black leadership who was inside the room ended up chiming in afterwards. And then, you know, that was my bread and butter to get out. That was like my shining moment. Like, I gotta go. I can't be here either. I'd rather deal with it out there and not have to like be owned at least. You know what I'm saying? Let me get me back and have to just deal with that. You know, so.
Just a part about, hey, why did you join up? And I tell you something different. Someone came in and sat them down and asked, why did you join? And nobody said anything about patriotism or anything like that. They said, hey, I needed this, or I thought this would help me out here. I wanted education, something like that. And that made them mad too, that you didn't say. I just thought that was the interesting point, that you also got the same. But kind of going off of that, excuse me. So we know that nobody really thought going into the military was gonna be like dealt with it before you didn't deal with it. It wasn't like this kind of golden entry that you thought, hey, I'm gonna get rid of all this stuff. But I'm curious to know. I didn't, when I was active duty, I didn't really face a lot of racism. But I wonder, was it overt that you didn't face? Was there any kind of covert racism that you may have encountered?
Well, see, for me, it would have kind of been hard to tell whether it was sexism or whether it was racism. Number one, I joined at the age of 17, didn't even have a driver's license when I came in. I was a munitions inspector, which is a male dominated career field. They sent me to upstate New York as my very first assignment. And so when I got there, I really was treated like I had a plague. Now, again, whether it was sexism or racism, like I had to prove myself. These guys weren't about to let me do anything. When I tell you it was a male dominated career field, there were two of us in my shop, one of us on day shift, one of us on night shift. The rest were all men. So I was like that kid on the team that nobody wants, which I'm not athletic. So it was like that at work. So whenever there was a job to do, whenever there were nukes to go inspect or weapons to move, I'd be sitting in the corner. Hey, I'll go, I'll go, I'll go. They would look all over me. They would pick the most lazy guy in the group to go out and do the job before they picked me. So that's how it was for me. So, like I said, but now being in upstate New York, it was like hunter's paradise. So we had that group of men there who it could have gone either way. But I really think that for the most part, for me, it really was. She's a 17-year-old kid, and we don't want to deal with her. So to answer your question, the way I dealt with that, whether it was racism or whether it was sexism, I had to prove myself. I had to get in those books. And when I got in those books, I got some of the highest scores when it came out to test. Because I don't know about the other branches, but like in the Air Force, you've got 6 months to pass whatever your specialty is. And if you don't, they can put you out of the Air Force. Within those 6 months, because I was sitting there, they weren't picking me to go anywhere. I came out with some of the highest scores. When I came out with some of the highest scores, and also when I had to go and speak to the chief master sergeant, they're not letting me do anything. How am I supposed to learn? Those two things are what got them to start pulling me out there. But that was what I had to follow the entire time I was in the Air Force, working with all those men. I constantly had to prove myself. So because I was doing that, it was kind of hard for me to tell whether are these guys just racist or do they just not like women? And it could have been a combination of both. So that being said, it was a hard stretch those 8 years. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Floor is open. For anyone else that overt that you want to share.
I mean, be real with you, you experience it every day. Like you walk into the shop being a black ET, once again, that's one of the smarter rates in the Navy, not to disrespect any other race. But when you get down to the electronics, we was in the same division, me and Monsanto, C5I. It wasn't too many of us. By muster, if me or him was late, they didn't have to call our name. They just looked around the room. You know, like,
The black dude ain't here.
you know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't too much, and then a lot of the battles were a lot of it. It's an eternal battle because you're gonna have to deal with the racism. So it's like, how are you going to treat it today? Today, are you going to be like, hey, you know what, crack a joke back, hit them where it hurt and keep it moving, or it's going to be one of them Dave Chappelle skits when keeping it real goes wrong? Because I had a couple of them, where I had my own personal stuff going on. Somebody might have said some slick racist stuff, and it's like, now I got you jacked up, in the fan. It's like, what was that you were saying? and it didn't work out good for anybody, you know. So at the end of the day, you realize it's just how you want to deal with it. You're gonna have to live with it. We can't turn this off. You know what I'm saying? We can't turn it off. So how you gonna deal with how the world treated?
Can I add one more thing about one particular incident? And I don't know, I guess this would kind of be covert, or maybe the guy just thought he was being funny. There was an incident when I was in the military and we worked a 12-hour shift, and this white master sergeant, we were pretty cool up until this point, but what you just said, AG, about slick comments and some of them just being ignorant. I was leaning up against a post waiting for my husband to pick me up after this 12-hour shift. And two or three white guys in the car, and they rolled by. And the one master sergeant yelled out the window, "Hey, honey, want to ride?" But he was definitely trying to be funny, but not in a good way to me. And the first thing I remember that popped to my head, the very first thing, and we had been on 3 days of 12 hours, but the very first thing that popped in my head was, back in the day, had the roles been reversed and a black guy would have done that to a white woman, they would have strung him up. And with that thought in my head, I became so livid. And the way that I handled that, though, because again, you didn't want to be the angry black woman. So I had to handle them in a different way. And so what I did was I went to the captain the next day. Now, of course, I was not his favorite person after that. But I tell you what, he didn't have anything slick to say to anybody else after a 12-hour shift, trying to be funny any other or in any other way. So to me, that came out of, first, you don't know your history, or you're just oblivious to it, or you think that you can talk to black women any sort of way. But that's how I had to handle that situation. I couldn't even talk to him. I'm just going to go above your head so that you will know without a doubt, this is not the way you talk to us. You would not have wanted anybody to talk to your wife like that. And he was married. So to me, while that might not have been blatant racism, it still was, there's a black woman. I can say what I want to say to her, and it's going to be okay.
Sucks too. It's like the amount or done, and it's just like, do I want to say something about? Do I want to respond to this, or just am I just gonna let this one go today? Like just like AG was saying, because it's every day. It's every day, and it in every way possible. Like it's almost amazing the different ways that people racist without being like absolutely directly racist. They come up with some of the most clever things, and it's like you're trying to like just. It's a lot.
You know, they put time and effort into thinking about it. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
I can tell you one way I flipped it on them one time.
What's that?
At Dave Chappelle, I'm a big fan of Dave Chappelle, always been. You know, so we was underway, and you know they had the hazmat suits, the little all white flash suits, the little, you know, they kind of cheap little whatever material. So I came across a big pile of them. I put one on. I'm walking around the ship for no reason with one of them on, just cause, you know, I'm me. So at that point, I'm like, I'm about to get clever with this. So I went and grabbed some electrical gloves, and you know, the ones, the big, thick rubber gloves.
Yeah, for grounding stuff out.
So I got those on too. I went and put on I got a brown paper bag, cut the holes out of the eyes, put the bag on. So I walk up into the to Seesaw, you know, the main little space, walk up in there, and I got the bag on. And it's, you know, once again, we're very far and few in the ET community. I was the only black ET for a while, for a second, you know, at a period of time. But like, I walk up into the Seaside, and it was like, "Show us your face, brother. Show us your face." And I was like, "You want to see my face?" And so I like snatched it off, you know, and I yelled it out, "Boogie woogie," you know what I'm saying? Yelled it out. So they was laughing at first until they realized it was me. Caught my chief, caught a couple of them. It's like, "That's not funny." You know, it's like, "Nah, y'all caught. You ain't know who was behind this bag at first till I took this bag off." You know what I'm saying? You got caught. But, you know, it's just real. I like to throw it back in their face. You know, they try to bring up funny stuff. I bring up funny stuff too, where it's like, it sting too, don't it? I like to make it.
Can I hear from you, Mr. Lucius? You mentioned earlier about not really being prepared for kind of, I guess, the systemic racism in the military, which is a thing too, you know, and I think that it's really important. Racism from, you know, your peers and your subordinates versus dealing with it systemically, because there's two different outcomes from dealing with them. But what was it like for you dealing with all of that?
Well, like the saying goes in the Navy, and those of you who serve in the Navy, you know, you choose your rate, you choose your fate. That's true in the Navy. And what you see that when you look at different types of rates in the Navy or different type of career fields, you see there's a culture that is formed. There's a way of doing things. There's a lifestyle. You know your operation people do stuff a certain way. Your construction people do stuff a certain way. Your admin people. So there's always a culture formed in every single rate. And so, I mean, when you talk about racism, I mean, in racism, like you said, racism, sexism, you know, you're talking, it's multifaceted. You're talking about, it's not only black and white, but it's Filipinos. It's like I said, different weight rates control. Like if you look in the MS community, you know, all your mess specialists, that rate for a long time, you know, stewards, they're called stewards before, but those rates were dominated by Filipino people, because Filipino people, they couldn't get clearances at the time, so they got a foothold in those type of service rates. And then majority of your master chiefs and your senior enlisted, they're normally Filipinos, so they literally control what they own. You know what I'm saying? So of course, if you're an MS and you're a Filipino and you walk in there, you good, right? You know what I mean? You know that your career is laid forward. But if you're a Caucasian or something else, you know, your career might be hindered, because they're going to promote their own first before they promote anybody else. And that's true in all different types of rates. My rate, I was an air crewman, so my rate was a very technical rate. And like brother said about being an ET, when you're in a technical rate, I mean, the attrition rate for you to even make it to your first command through all your schools and everything, the attrition rates are very high. You know, I was an operations chief, so I had ETs that work for me. So I know the attrition rate's high. And I know there's a lot of things that can disqualify you. But it's along those lines is where you see a lot of systemic racism, eval systems, the PRT systems, weights, they use weight, they use physical fitness, they use everything they can to literally get rid of the numbers so they can control who they want to promote. And that's also true in the Chiefs mess. It's the same way. You know, they want to control who goes in there, because once you get to a certain level, you can affect change.
Right.
And if you can affect change, and that's what I learned. I made chief at 19 years. I was fixing to retire, when they decided to finally promote me. And, my wife can attribute to, I've always been a stellar sailor. I mean, I've always been an LPO. I always had, awards. I always was Sailor of the Year multiple times. And I never promoted to chief. And I never knew why. And it wasn't until my 19-year mark, I was literally maybe 6 months to retire, is when the results came out and they promoted me. They said, so now I was stuck, do I want to, take this rank and stay in a extra 4 or 5 years, whatever, or do I want to retire and call it a day? But I realized that is a seat at the table. And that was my opportunity to affect change in other sailors' lives. And my wife can attest to me, that's exactly what I did. I was in the room now. I saw what they did. I seen who they choose to promote. I saw who they choose to throw out of the Navy. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And I have to tell you that I was shocked, because most of it was bias. Was bias, and it was them trying to control what they own. So, I stayed there, and I became a thorn in the side of a lot of commands, and I'm proud. I wear that as a badge of honor, that a young brother that was going to get thrown out for something trivial that maybe another sailor, a Filipino sailor or a white sailor, got overlooked for. I was able to sit there and be that voice and say, you know what, we're not going to do that today. And if we decide to do that, then everyone's going to know what we're doing. So, and yeah, so I mean, those bottom lines, those are There's always going to be racism.
And I wish
everywhere.
you was on my boat.
Yeah. But like I said, you don't see those behind the scenes meetings. You don't see those after the meeting meetings. That's some things I experienced like as a young sailor training for my job. They never fully trained me the way that they train other people. There's always things that they left out that I had to learn. And like the sister said, I had to do extra. I had to be in the books. I had to know more than them. I had to know instructions. I had to throw it in their face. And in some cases, I had to circumvent and take the jobs and the assignments that nobody wanted to promote. You see what I mean? So I spent literally 14 years overseas in Japan because for my rate, all the good old boys were here in Jacksonville. And I would have never promoted there. They made that obviously clear. So I had to go other avenues and take the jobs that they didn't want just to get to the same place. And that's what, and like I said, but life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And
Back over my time, and as we were preparing for this, I did a lot of dumb stuff when I was in the military, right? Like a lot, but I look back now and recognize that I was and I didn't have no leadership for real. You know what I mean? It's like a bunch of grown men, because that's all I was around was a bunch of grown men. So should have been able to recognize that something was, but what ultimately ended up happening was up and pushed off to the side. So like how y'all were saying, it's like you got to do more to prove your worth and prove your value. Like as an IC-man, I'm not sure that right? And I got to the boat. I was on a frigate, and that thing was just broke, like just bottom line broke. And there was four of us, two of our IC men, and like they were good ice. Two of them were like top notch IC men, but they were on their way out the door. One was like he had just submitted an LDO packet, and another one was on his way off the boat. The other one was like he was a push button third class, just extra incompetent. And it was like, okay, you're the most junior sailor in your shop. You're the most junior IC. And so like I kind of felt like, am I getting all of this work because I'm the junior guy? Or is it because I'm black? Or like it was really hard for me to identify what it was. All I know was I'm the only one in right all the time. And not even just in the shop. I'm talking like stand and watch. Whereas like I think it was you, Lucius, who said like there's some if a young white sailor did it, he expected. Whereas if I did it, it was like, all right, bro, you're about to stand 3 watches back to back all day. Oh, and you're not even about to stand like the petty officer to watch. You're gonna stand messenger because I want you to. That way, you can sweat in them all day, get them brown, and then have to go get them clean. So you're it, but that's the only reason you're doing it, dog. Because like I'm qualified for work, and like I'm talking, I fixed everything on that boat, And then once it was like, okay, we don't need him anymore. That little bit of protection that I did have from a few people, done by. I'm like, oh, cool, So it's really interesting to hear you speak on what it's like on the other side, being in hearing how those conversations go. I had my second class, the one that I mentioned earlier. He IC2. He's a chief now. One of those like squared away sailors for sure. He like when I got out, he was still in. He lived around the corner from me. My wife and I used to visit, and he was like, "Bro, I think that you would have done so much better if our chief wasn't racist." And this is a white dude telling me this, and our chief is black, and I'm like, "Dang, why you say he's racist?" He's like, "Bro, look at the way he treated you." I'm like, "Duh!" Like there's no way around it. And I'm like, I'm thinking, and I guess him and I didn't really interact so much. He mostly just told other demonstrated the way that I was supposed to be treated amongst his fellow chiefs and things. I remember this one time we were like underway doing whatever, and they dropped anchor for a little bit and they had a swim call. And they're like, all right, swim call, swim call. I'll go up there. I'm finna go swim. And he's like, Monsanto, you sure you want to jump out there? I'm like, yeah. He's like, are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure you can't swim. Like, why wouldn't I be able to swim?
I wouldn't be here. I'm in the Navy. You get what I'm saying?
It's like, like that was a part of my test.
Hey, just put it out there. Don't front like everybody in the Navy could swim.
Oh no, yeah, that's right.
You remember boot camp? Okay, you know that
They
tower.
wouldn't have made it out of boot camp if they didn't
You
get
remember jumping in that tower? That tower. There's some people that didn't want to jump off the tower. There were people that couldn't. So I mean, that's just something. I understand what he's saying, the stereotypes and stuff like that. But there's a lot of people in the Navy that couldn't swim.
That is facts. That is facts. But it was just like somebody who for multiple things looking back, like one, as a black man, two, as somebody who calls himself a Christian, I felt like best thing to be everything that you saw that I could be, rather than use me for all the work that you had no choice but to get out of me, because I gotta work for you. You know what I mean? And like that was more of the approach that I was handled with by majority of the leadership that I encountered. Was, okay, let me get all of the work out of him that I can get, since he has to work for me regardless. And then when push comes to shove, I'm gonna pretend like he's not exactly, the best at what he does, because that's what I was. Like, I was that person where if you needed something from my shop, or you needed somebody in my shop to fix something, you're coming to me, whether it's because I'm the best or you don't want to deal with everybody else because they're arrogant or whatever. Like, I was just the easiest to deal with. I knew what I was doing. I get it done fast, efficiently, effectively, all of that. And it's like I get P evals, while the white dude who is in ET, and our chief's in ET, so it's like, I don't know if it was ET favoritism or racism, but it's like the white dude who's extra incompetent, who needs help carrying a trash bag, is getting EPs. And then it's like, well, you showed up late to muster. I'm like, all right, well, cool. Tell you what, this is what I'm going to do. I need help from you, all right? I'm not really good with this whole waking up thing. I'm going to set some alarms, and can you help me? And it's like, all right, cool, we'll help. And then there's no help. So it's like I'm asking for help in areas that I recognize I need help in. And that's the thing. If I'm asking for help in an area that I recognize I need help in, dog, just help me. Otherwise, what are we doing here? And like to your point earlier, that brotherhood and that camaraderie that I expected, it wasn't really there. I saw it for other people, I saw it but I didn't really experience it. What I really experienced was just kind of like being on the outside looking in, being the guy who does all the work for everybody in the shop. Like, I remember we pulled into Jacksonville one day. I'm on Liberty, and I get called to the shop to fix something because it was my equipment. Now, mind you, there's another IC that's there on duty, and then the 4 people from my shop that are there, they all outrank me. They're like 3rd and 2nd and 1st classes, and they all been on the boat like 2-3 years before I got there. Which means if there was ever an issue with this equipment before I got there, one of y'all was fixing it. So why do you have to disrupt my liberty to, you know what I mean? It was just like they went out of their way to do stuff like that, And
I want to say something, man. You touched on something, man. It was like I wanted to say it earlier, but then I allowed you to keep talking, and it's crazy. That's how it usually works. You just be quiet, and somebody eventually say what you need to hear anyway. So the tie into it, you had said like it's like a society that they kind of form, like not just they, but in the military, we understood and we experienced what it felt like to kind of be different from regular civilians. We experienced that privilege because it's a privilege. You get what I'm saying? They came with wearing that uniform and walking around, even when you didn't have it on and you just knew something pop off. Hey, you gonna pull that military ID out with the driver's license? Hey. Don't shoot me. You know what I'm saying? Like, but imagine being born and taught that you were born with an innate privilege already. And then going into a society that was already established that has an innate privilege built into it. So now you just doubled up on your shield. You get what I'm saying? So we you know, I said something to my people. I was like, man, I joined the Navy just to have a colonizer show me proper placement. Like, because even when you level up, you still got that skin on you. No matter where you go in this world and society, man, they're gonna try their best to remind us what we look like and where they think we should be at. And so it's like, man, the societies that we form, that we create to kind of cope with what we're dealing with inside the military, because we form our own cliques. He said something, I was told before I chose where I wanted to go, like, hey, if you go to the West Coast, the Filipinos, they pretty much got their own world. So if you want to get good with the SHs and stuff, holla at a couple Filipinos, you know, they got their own world, they run that, you know. And so just to even know that, like, and then, all right, I'm from the gutter. I'm from Traytown, America, South Side Atlanta. You get what I'm saying? And it's like, when I went to the Navy, I was an ET. So I was leaving one world and going to a whole nother world. Like, I couldn't bring Atlanta to the Navy. They let me know that in boot camp. Like, we would send your ass back to the block. That's what they told me. We would send you right back where you came from. Get it together. And I was like, yo, I didn't come in for nothing. So I got it together. And I watched like so many other dudes who look like so many other brothers who probably left from good neighborhoods, good homes, parents who took care of them, probably with dependents themselves their whole life, military brats, never had to worry about a struggle or anything in their life, and they get in the military and they want to be the biggest gangsters in the world, want to go buy all the guns in the world and want to shoot up stuff because they free. And they want to live this life, and it's like, yo, you want to play that? I'm the dude who's like, nah, I don't know nothing about that guy. I'm gonna fix this over here and just stay in my lane. I'm an ET. I don't know about none of that stuff. I'm an ET. Blood, Crip, what? I don't know none of that. I'm in the Navy. You know what I'm saying? Go blue, big Navy. You know what I'm saying? That's all I knew. That's the life that I wanted for me. I knew where I came from and where I was trying to go. You know, so you know, it's just all about creating them societies and just knowing that, like, we came from no privilege, and we do get a piece of a taste of that privilege just to realize there's still levels to it. Like, we'll never be, like he said, you got to go through so many back avenues just to even get a foot at the table, a taste, to open another door for us, for everybody else who coming behind them. Like, I salute Big Bro. You know, you ain't say you was an officer, so, you know, but like, man, hats off and salute just being able to get in that foot and make that change and actually being able to impact people who needed you. Like Monsanto said, he would have had you back then. You could have been that dude who hit him up at 5 o'clock, like, hey, I'm outside your door, open the door, get up. You know what I'm saying? You giving them 5 minutes to get dressed. Because in boot camp, where we had 2 minutes, you know what I'm saying? You giving them 5 minutes to get dressed so we can get out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Can I just add to that? It's funny how listening to everybody else's experiences, it all kind of boils down to the same thing, that whether racism, sexism, whatever, we all still had to prove ourselves in one way or another. And Charles, I like what you said about not getting the help. I can remember at 17, not knowing how to shoot the shotgun. And in my field, you had to qualify on that shotgun to stay in that field. Well, no one ever taught me. So the first time I went out, I shot the shotgun out here. So what did it do? It almost broke my clavicle. No one still took the time. Those guys watched me on the range that day, which I failed. They watched me on the range the second time, I failed. They watched me on the range the third time, I failed. Now, I'm in New York, upstate New York, January. They watched me take off my earmuffs, my scarf, my leather gloves, pack the inside of my fatigue jacket with it, put the shotgun there and try to shoot that way so I wouldn't hurt myself. These guys watched me do that 3 separate times, and no one ever taught me how to shoot that shotgun properly. Not only was I the youngest person out there on the range each time, but I was the only Black person on the range each time. That being said, the third time I still failed. You know what they did? Instead of taking the time to teach me, because they were setting me up for failure. Okay, you passed. Now, me being naive, I don't know why I thought I passed. I was like, oh, let me see my card. Let me see my card. No, don't worry about it. You passed. I was like, no, but let me see. I want to see. And he was like, just get in the truck. You passed. And then I got it. I didn't pass, but nobody was willing to teach me. They just wanted to rush me on through. It wasn't until, and I don't want to, I had some really, really good men, white men and black men, who took the time to really kind of take me through some things later. But my first couple of years in were really terrible. So it wasn't until I got to Germany, I'm about 3 years away from getting out, that I'm shooting the M16 on the range with my eyes closed. And the guy stops everything on the range and he's like, hey, he said, you shot the shotgun, didn't you? And I said, yes. He said, this isn't the shotgun. It doesn't have a kick. He took the time to show me how to shoot the M16. And for the first time, I shot marksman. And because before, all I was doing was just hitting the boards, hitting other people's targets. It was crazy.
Out here.
It was crazy. I'm surprised I didn't kill somebody. But at the end of the day, no one was willing to teach me. I wasn't worth their time. So it's sad how hard we had to fight. We're serving our country, whether those were our reasons for joining or not. We're still serving our country, just like the man or the woman right next to us. But the time that some of them were willing not to invest in us was extremely apparent. And because of that, we had to work even harder. And it shouldn't be that way. It is what it is, but we had to work harder.
Because whether racism or sexism or whatever, you figure, okay, but I've been saying all week, I'm the only one here that has not served. Nothing. But I've been hearing things all week like battle buddy and things like that. Like so I figure, if this person is beside me, if I'm supposed to put my life in this person's hand and potentially at some point, I want to make sure that they know what they're doing too. So in my head, it's like racism, sexism, whatever. How much do you have to dislike me? Make sure that I fell in something that could potentially save your life at some point. Like,
Right.
how much do you have to not like me for that to be the case? That's crazy.
It's and one of the things that nobody's ever outright said it, but I would venture to say that it wasn't always so much like just racism or I dislike this person as a person. Oftentimes I really do felt like there were a lot of people who just recognized the raw potential and skill and just like didn't like that and wanted to
Dated.
like do either go out of their way to make you look bad or shine a light on you whenever you made yourself look bad. It was really like there was a lot of that. I think out of all the people that I was on the boat with, I think I maybe keep in touch with like 3 to 5 of them. Most of them are black. In fact, I only keep in touch with like 2 white people from the boat. One, his wife was on yesterday, and another one helps us with the show. I mean, other ones, I like social media and all that other stuff. But most of the people that I keep in touch with aren't from my shop. Like they're not the people that I was with every day working with. Because as I was working with them every day, I got to see who they really were, how they really felt about me. There was one command party. There was this one ET from my shop. We were out, doing raffles and all that stuff, dancing. And we go out to the car. We're taking some shots. And the dude, he's from Texas, and he gives some toast. And I don't remember the toast, but it was racist. He's like using the N word and calling, how they do, I guess the S word, referring to Hispanic people, like all of that in the toast. And I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, this is really happening right now, And that's just the thing. Like, I've had, like, I'm 5'7", 200 pounds maybe. There was this, I don't know, he must have been like 6'2", 6'3", and I don't even know how. Like, the Navy got some fat people for real, dog. There was this GSC dude. He was like, he must have been 2-something, like 280. And he got mad because I wasn't letting him be racist, right? And so, like, he's ready to fight me. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, honestly, I'm down to fight him, but he'll probably kill me. Like, dude was just massive. And so I'm just like walking away from him. He's walking behind me. And this is when I knew that he was really upset with me and felt disrespected by a black person because he followed me to my space. I walked into my space and closed the door, like slammed it in his face. And when that happened, he got pissed, slammed the door open, comes in, tries to tackle me into a corner. we get into it and, you know, people break it up or whatever, but it's like for you to feel justified in attacking somebody in their space because they close you out of their space, that says more than like I'm just mad, right? You know? And so I'm just like, how one of the things like I said to you guys before, it's like I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people who believe that the military is just filled with people who love each other and serve their country and want to be patriotic. And it is filled with that, but it's also filled with other things. At the end of the day, the US military is made up of regular everyday people. And regular everyday people have problems and issues that we're all dealing with, you know. And I think that it would just go a long way if we learned how to be kind towards one another, to be loving, to be helpful, to be teachable, and to help teach. It's like, you know, I had this the icy one I was referencing earlier. One of the first things that he did when I got to the ship, he took me to go like work on some sensors, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna do it. You're gonna watch me. You're gonna take all the credit for it because me doing this ain't gonna benefit. Like me getting credit for this ain't gonna benefit me, but you getting credit for this is gonna benefit you and me because you look good, and now I look good because you work for me." And like when he said that, I was like, that makes perfect sense. And then the way I would see other leadership treating me, it was like, don't if I look bad, you look bad. And it's like, so you don't care that much that you're willing to make me look bad. It's like y'all were saying, like certain things that white counterparts would do and get covered for, I'm being like blasted and exposed. Like they might as well have said it over to one MC, right? Like every day, and it's just I don't understand it. But one of the things that I kind of wanted to get into as we kind of wind down is eliminating racism in the military. And I guess if we're being honest, like I just said, it's made up of everyday people. So you're never going to get rid of racism in the military overall. But I think the systemic aspect of it, I think that's attainable. It's going to be next to it's going to be hard, but it's attainable. You don't think so? You like, nah, bro, it's forever racist.
Well, I retired in 2018. So 3 years ago is when I ended my career. And I can tell you right now that it's a totally different Navy than when I joined in 1992. That through, awareness, through different programs, through, elimination, through just the old guard retiring, you have a branch of service now that is more diverse. When I mean diverse, I mean, not just diversity of skin, but diversity of thought. I mean, you have every demographic that serves now, and just about every demographic there has a voice. So it's not the same Navy. It's to the point now where it's more it's more, I don't want to say coddling to everybody's needs, to where it doesn't seem like it's a military anymore.
You can say it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's more coddling. So now what you did was you went to the opposite side of the spectrum. Instead of being, because the whole purpose in the military is to fight wars. To engage the enemy, destroy the enemy, to fight wars. So I mean, going to the other end of the spectrum, in my opinion, weakens the military, because you still need people that are patriotic, that are willing to put their life on the line to defend this country. And I don't see that. Back when I retired in 2018, people were in it for their own purposes, their own needs. Whether it was money for college, whether it was just to make money and get a second job on the side, whether it was, now you have transgenders who get in just to get sexual reassignment, for free. So I
Military
mean,
pays for it.
they pay for it. They just don't, they pay for it in phases. They pay for, now you had in the Navy, you have a transgender training team that's headed up by a transgender admiral that goes from command to command, giving training on transgenders. And like I said, I mean, they will pay for not only for your surgeries, but all your hormone therapies throughout your different phases, all your psychological examinations, because you have to be psychological. Is she okay? you gotta be psychologically evaluated in each phase before they'll go along with it. But all that stuff is funded through the Navy. So I mean, it's to the point now where I don't feel, in my opinion, that we're a effective fighting force because of that. You know, that's the Navy. I can't speak on the Air Force or the Army or the Marine Corps, but the Navy, whether or not it's fair, yeah, I think it's better than it was. It's a lot better than it was, and now it's more merit based than it ever has been before. So it's all about your performance, and especially all of the critical technical rates, because people don't want to stay in no more. The military has gotten a bad rap. People think it's racist, it's sexist, so they don't want to join anymore. They would rather stay on the outside world and make money that way. So all your IT fields and all your ET fields, all those fields are really undermanned. So the people that are there, they need them. So they got rid of the PRT standards. You know, you had to be in some kind of shape back in the day to be in the Navy. Now you don't. Now, as long as your waistline is not above a certain measurement, you know what I'm saying, they'll keep you in. And even if it isn't, they'll keep you in. They'll, we're kicking people out left and right when I was in, but now it's not like that anymore.
So interesting, because like two of the. Oh, go ahead.
Kind of what Lucius Line was saying, as far as like just the people coming in back then being different is different. It's like our mentalities, the world, everything socially was different. With everybody just kind of experienced for the past 4 or 5 years and witnessing the type of stuff that was kind of just manifesting in front of us in our society, and people changing the way they had to look at racism. Yeah, it was like, what my girl saying, what was the name of a song that they didn't want her to sing back in the day? Strange Fruit.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? It's like, back then, people didn't have the visual, they didn't have everything up in their face to witness and just have that clear-cut evidence of racism. So now everything is out. I don't feel like the racism in the military is going to change, because what they're doing now is band-aids. It's just band-aids. They're creating resentment. That's why all them people are getting out, because they're coming in. They're not changing the way them people think. They're just making them resent what you're trying to make them think. You're forcing these ideologies on people, and you're trying to make them think like this. Well, everybody's waking up. That sheep mentality is leaving, so everybody's kind of thinking for themselves now. And it's like, if you got someone who was born racist, not born racist, taught racism, born into racism, they were taught it, and they believe that is what they should be feeling, and they don't care what anyone else feels, doesn't matter what you train them, how many hours and how many slideshows they skip through. It's not going to change what they truly feel. So yeah, they're going to resent it and they're getting out. They'll rather just be openly racist and don't have to deal with getting half of their money taken away. They want to get paid for being racist and do whatever they want to do, and don't have no one to tell them not to be here. They don't want to go through training. The world is kind of choosing. They're picking sides, man. It's like, when we all actually wake up and realize, like, it's happening. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't want to get too spiritual and start, not too religious and start preaching and stuff, but it's bigger than just, it's bigger. Like, this is the beginning of the time we're talking about, as far as people treating people the way they treat them. You get what I'm saying? That's why
let me ask you one question. Do you feel like your military service made you a better person? And I put this out to the whole panel. Are you a better person because you joined the military? Because if truth be said, your experiences and what everybody on this panel endured really opened the door for the next generation to have it like they have it now. If it wasn't for the sacrifices and the racism that everybody on this panel endured and overcame, it still would be the same way as it is now. And like I said, I retired 3 years ago, and it's a lot better than what it used to be. So did it make you a better person?
I think for me that I guess I can say in some areas it made me a better person. And I say it that way because I know what kind of foundation I had before I even joined the military. But I can say that my experiences in the military, I I guess, broadened my mind in different areas. I grew in different areas. Yeah, so I can't, I guess the easy way to say it would be yes, it made me a better person in some regards. But like I said, I don't, when I look at the opposite, it wasn't like I wasn't a good person or a person who didn't have a foundation to begin with. And then for me also, I grew up as a military dependent. So I was always around the military. So for me, that transition from a dependent to active duty, it wasn't really that different. It was just me instead of my dad. Some of the stuff that I dealt with, I heard my dad talking about throughout his career. So I don't know how much of a better person it made me. It gave me lots of experiences, positive as well as negative. But I don't think I can honestly say that the military made me better. Did that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense because when he asked it, I was like, "Whoa, that almost it didn't sound it, but it was like a loaded question." And like I'm thinking about it, and as you're speaking, I'm like, "Yeah, I agree with exactly that." Because I guess if I were going to answer your question directly, I would say that yes, the military made me a better person, but it only made me a better person in the sense of I, based off of my experience, ended up resenting the military so much that I wanted to say, yo, I could have been this good in there if y'all had helped me. And yeah, and like that's what happened. And now I'm at this place where it's like, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody from the military. But the journey that I'm on, it kind of started with like, yo, everybody counted me out and left me out to dry and all that. I'm gonna prove everybody wrong, and that's how it made me better. But it didn't
Yeah.
like actively when I was in there. Like no, when I was in there, I had a lot of fun and I had a lot of good and bad experiences, like she said. But while I was in there, I was able to because again, my experience was being used up for what I was good for. So I was able to just screw up as long as I was getting all my work done, and that didn't help me in any way.
Yeah. Now I will say I had teachable moments. I don't want to walk away having anybody think that you didn't learn anything or you knew everything. That wasn't the case. I had a lot of teachable moments, a lot of positive experiences. But again, like I said, bottom line, I know what foundation I had before I got there. Now, the one thing I can say is discipline and being a supervisor in the Air Force. I can say that I learned how to deal with lots of different personalities, and then how to be able to adjust to those personalities and work with those personalities. Now, in that sense, that did make me a better person because when I came in and was in, you guys keep saying boot camp, that's not what the Air Force calls it. Now I can't even think about it. But anyway, when I came in, the girls hated me. I was 17 and I had no time for foolishness and didn't want to hear about their not Dear John letters, Dear Jane letters, nothing like that. But as as I became a supervisor and progressed in the Air Force, now that has really helped me on the outside. I can say that, and I've been out since 1995. But that experience, now I can talk to just about anything, tolerate just about anybody, and I have a thick skin. No offense, guys, but working with that many men for that long, I got a pretty thick skin. So for that reason, things like that, if I were to pick out certain experiences, yes, I can say the military made me a better person that way.
Are you AG?
Man, I can be real with you. Being where I'm from, a lot of people don't even get outside of Atlanta city limits. Them going out of town is leaving Atlanta and going to Waycross, Georgia. You know, so to think about it, like I don't travel the world. How many people where I'm from can say that? I've done a lot. I've met so many people, and I want to clear that up because we were talking about racism, and it's a real heavy subject, and a lot of people can feel whatever type of way they want to, depending on what gets said from any given day. So I don't want to make it seem like every white person or all our
Right.
experiences with racism. I had some real good times, and like I some of the people who stepped up and kind of helped me still be in this point where I am now were white. They were white people who like they helped me realize that I can't look at them as all of them are evil trying to get me, because all of them aren't. Just like every Black person who says, throws a fist up and say Black Lives Matter ain't really with the cause.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? And so when I realized like some of the people who was in higher ups and they were Black and you was expecting them to stand up for you, they were the ones who were throwing you under the bus. And then once they throw you under the bus, it was a random white higher up who came on and was like, hey man, that was crazy. Come here, let me show you what's going on. Let me put you on game. And it wasn't even your own. It was the other one who realized like, hey, I don't know what that was about, but I ain't like that. So, I was able to transform my mentality. And now, I went into the Navy with one child. I got 4 kids now. You know what I'm saying? I just had I got a 3-year-old son. He's a twin. And I think about like, do I want my son to ever join the military? Hell no. If I can do everything in my power, I'm gonna make sure he never has to even think about it. Like, there's so many other things to do. Because I fought for years after I got out the Navy with just trying to get what I felt like my soul back. Like I went to the Navy chasing security, and the book tell you, look up if you want security. Don't look for the world for security. Because when I went to them, they pretty much knew it was a false sense of security. Yeah, I was getting paid every such and such.
First and 15 lit.
We had to give up to be able to get that check. And it was like, no, all money ain't good money, regardless of where it comes from. And how much you willing to. It goes back to what I said a while ago. The fights that you deal with every day, like you already know what you waking up and having to deal with. You already know the fights that you already lost by the time you woke up. So you're gonna let that pile on to the new fights that you're gonna deal with, the racism, the overt or the indirect little comments or whatever little tricks or tactics they use to try to keep you down, because it's evident they do it. When you see 10 people in a division get in trouble for drugs, and then the only people who get kicked out are the Black ones, you be like, wait now. You know what I'm saying? But you see it happening all the time. And it's like, well, I know not to put myself in that situation, so I don't have to deal with that. I don't open that door where they just give a free pass to kick me out. I'm gonna make them earn it. Like, you want me gone, put me out the right way. You get me? But I mean, this is one of them, man. I appreciate this opportunity for most definitely just being able to share with y'all and hear it, and to know, like Miss Shonda was saying, it's crazy to know that regardless of what, we were all just trying to prove that we were better than what they saw. It doesn't matter what they think when they see us. We just know we were better than whatever they thought when they saw us. And we had to prove that, and we did. That's why we're here now. So like, big ups and salute. Stay up for that.
Like the other 3 nights have been. This has been just as insightful, so thank you. We want to move into our last little section. We call this section Final Thoughts. And what we do here is we want to give each of our guests 60 seconds, 1 minute, to say what you want all of the other guests and all of our viewers and us to take away from this conversation. So we're going to do that. We're going to share ours. I keep joking. I don't know why I'm doing final thoughts. I'm not in the military. But that's what we're going to do. So, Ms. Rashada, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. I first of all, thank you all for your service, every last one of you. I don't regret the time that I served. And if there was any takeaway, it would be, and the military has changed a lot, but if that's a choice that you decided to make, that you be that one, like Lucius was saying, make it your job or your goal to affect change for others coming in after you, but also not being naive when you do go in, knowing that if you are a person of color, you are going to have to work hard. There are no free passes for us. I think there is honor in serving our country, but know that you will have to work hard. And I would encourage anybody to work hard. If that's the choice that you made, show them that we are more than what they see in the media.
About you, 60 seconds.
6 seconds. I mean, first off, shouts out to the Most High, man. Like he orchestrated all this, even for our paths to cross to the point we right here today talking about this subject, which is a big subject, and it's something that a lot of people push under the rugs because they don't like that thought of our military still experiencing what we experience every day in the civilian world. So I appreciate it once again for me being able to share my feelings and my experiences with that. And man, I hope this is something that everybody can kind of tap into and, and make something happen. We can get some more Lucius Lyons to come through, and change the game for them, make it a little bit better for everybody, So it's like everybody can get a piece of that pie equally. Feel me?
All right, Lucius.
I just like to say thank you to everybody on the panel. I mean, brothers, sisters, we are all brothers and sisters in arms. And that's something that you can say with pride because only a few percent of the entire population of America served in the military. So, whether your experience was good, whether your experience was bad, you can say with pride that you did serve your country. You did serve your country and you are a veteran. And not too many people can say that. So I always have a special place in my heart for anybody that's ever been in the military. And like I said, I mean, nothing is perfect. And we all know that. Nothing in this world is easy. Nothing is perfect. I mean, but your guys' experience in the military is where God needed you to be at that time. And whatever contributions that you made, whatever you learned, it's what he had for you at that time. So, all I say is for the people who are deciding to join the military, you get in, you work hard, and you stand up and you be heard. You know what I mean? You don't take anything lying down. This is the time of the season for you for your voices to be heard. So like I said, I mean, if you do decide to join the military, I mean, it can be beneficial. I mean, it's not the horror stories that everyone's making it out to be. But just make sure your heart's in the right place and you join for the right reasons. Like AG said, back in the day, we were joining because we didn't want to be in jail, because we didn't want to be dead. I remember people in court. I mean, the judge would give you a choice: jail time or the military. So I mean, and that's the culture that we had when we were there. But it's not like that now. There's options and there's choices. Even for the young brother right there, I mean, there's options and choices. And being a veteran does have its privileges. You get rushed up to the head of the line for certain things. So that's something that you. Hey, look, I retired, so that pension and medical is nice. You know what I mean? So like, there's good and bad in everything is all I want to say. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys letting me speak. And like I said, God bless all my brothers and sisters in arms.
I'm pushing 30, so I think my time is passed.
No, brother. We'll take you all. The Army will take you all the way to almost 40. I think 38.
It's so
Yeah.
funny
I
because
think 38. I just knew somebody that just got in at 38.
I think it was like a year or two ago. I reached out to a buddy of mine. We joined together at the same time, and I was like, "Yo, I'm thinking about like going back into the military. Am I an idiot?" And he's like, I mean, yeah, but you do know how to play the game now, And I was like, that's facts. But so yeah, that my final thoughts, I guess, would be, if you're gonna go into the military, man, know what you're getting into, just like everybody said. There's good, there's bad, there's ugly. One of the biggest things that I learned, and I learned it after I needed to learn it, which was the black and white is like it's your safety net, it's your protection. Like if you know that, can't nobody really mess with you. They can try, but they can't mess with you. And then understand that whether it's racism, whether it's sexism, whether it's a superiority or inferiority complex, like people are people in the military just like they are outside of it. So whatever evil, wicked, hatefulness that you experience or deal with, or injustice that you deal with in your neighborhood or at your job now or at school, at church, you're going to deal with in the military, because you're still dealing with people. Wherever you go where there's people, you're going to deal with these things. So just understand that you're not escaping anything. rather you're walking into a new opportunity. And I think having the proper perspective whenever you go into any situation, but especially in the military, will help you succeed, excel, thrive, all of that. For me, if you've been listening all week, you've heard me mention consistently how my experience has not been delightful. I went in with a very poor and terrible perspective. I'm 1,000% aware of that. I still feel like as the child that I was, and a lot of the things that I was struggling with, and a lot of the things that I did that were, I feel very clearly, signs of I need help. We were lacking people like Lucius as chiefs, and I think that as more of those are rising up, it will become a better place for more people. I think that right now it's going to look like what AG was saying, where it's like you're trying to tell me not to be what I've been raised to be. And again, it's not just racism, but regardless, they're implementing these things, whether it's because they want to or they have to. It's ultimately irrelevant. They're being implemented, and I think that there's a lot of good that can come from it and should come from it. So if you're going to go in, just know what you're getting into.
All right, so my million final thoughts. All this week, I've been hearing amazing stories. I've been hearing heartbreaking stories, but one thing has remained the same. No matter what somebody was dealing with, whether they were trying to deal with the VA, whether they were dealing with a superior, whether they were a woman dealing with men in different aspects, whether you're black and you're dealing with racism in different aspects, no one has said, I regret my decision to join the military and I would redo it if I could. Pride has been a word that's come up over and over and over again. Even Charles shared some doozies this week. Just some wild stuff. And he hasn't said, nah, if I could rewrite history, I wouldn't do this ever again. So what sticks out to me is that regardless of how tough it is, of how hard you have to work, of how much more work you have to put in than somebody else, there is this sense of pride and there is this thankfulness that I'm getting from every serviceman we've talked to about their time. And so that, to me, no matter how crazy things get, shines kind of a positive light on the military. So I just wanted to say that. I want to thank you all for your service. And I just wanted to say that as far as I'm concerned, this week has shown me that, yeah, no matter how crazy things get, the military is a good place. And like Charles said, it's made up of U.S. citizens. So anything you would see out here, you're going to see it in there. You're going to have to deal with it whether you're in or you're out. But the military in and of itself, like you said, Lucius, is not this horror story. So I appreciate this week. I appreciate the dialogue we've been able to have. And yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on and being willing to share with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you all.
You
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
so-
God bless. Have a good one.
With that, we're gonna close this out real quick. I'm gonna pray this out real quick, and I'm gonna let y'all go. Yeah, we'll be on tomorrow for the word in the meantime. So tune in tomorrow. Thank you, God, for this conversation. Thank you for all these conversations and the ability that we have to be able to hear from people and hear their stories and get perspectives that we weren't able to get before. I ask that anyone that was able to hear us and listen in can take this new perspective and go forth with this new understanding and make change. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 All right. Like I said, we'll be on tomorrow. Thank you everyone that stopped in and hang out with us. Tune in. We got more stuff coming for you. But with that, you guys take it easy and we will see you tomorrow.